February 9th, 1964 is a big celebration coming up on Sunday. It's an iconic year, one that made the history books. Now, what happened on February 9th, 1964? If you would please close your eyes, I want you to imagine something. On February 2nd, 1964, ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles! That's right. They appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show. Now, tomorrow would mark February 7th, 1964, is the day they actually touched down at John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York when they arrived on the plane. Now, what makes this iconic is there was about 3,000 fans at the airport waiting for the four lads who just came in from Liverpool to touch down. They had never been to America. They had dreams as young teenage boys to always come to America. They were influenced by Chuck Berry and Little Richard and the Everly Brothers, which was one of Paul McCartney's favorites. That music transcended in them the leadership skills that transcend in all music today. That is correct. And it doesn't just apply to musicians. It can apply to anyone. The Beatles have brought together all generations. A 2-year-old today will know who the Beatles are, just as their grandmother would know who the Beatles are. And their parents, the same. Everyone knows who John, Paul, George, and Ringo are. Now, it wasn't always glory and fame. Even though 73 million viewers tuned into television that historical night at the Ed Sullivan Theater in New York on February 9th, 1964, to watch the Beatles perform live in front of an American audience for the first time. Now, here's the things that we learned. First of all, it was so loud from all the screaming teenage gals that were in the audience, the Beatles couldn't hear themselves playing. They couldn't hear the words they were singing, the harmonies they were, coming together, or the chords they were playing, because it was so loud. It was very evident and clear. Now, what makes them great leaders, musically speaking? Well, before them, yes, there were lots of famous musicians and bands, but you had other people, such as Carole King, who wrote songs for other musicians. Now, Carole King is a famous female singer-songwriter, but she wrote so many hits for other musicians and bands in the 50s. She didn't sing her own music, not until the 70s. Why? Because women weren't allowed to sing all the music they wrote. No musician was really singing any songs they had written until the Beatles came along. They actually started the road for bands not only to harmonize like the Everly Brothers, but to come together as a team and lead a force of millions around the world. And how did they do that? They did that with their brilliant songwriting, working hard hours. Now, it wasn't always that way. It started out when, at the beginning of their career, they played in strip clubs in Germany. They played their very first gig, officially, aside from the strip club, was a place called the Cavern. It was actually a bomb shelter that got converted into a pub. And then you go downstairs, these little stairs in this small room, about half the size of this room, even smaller, to hear these four guys play. Who knew that they would move from there and go on to Germany to these strip clubs and play 8 hours? There wasn't even that many people in the club itself. No one was there to hear them. They all bunked together. There was one small room with 2 bunk beds they had to share. There were 4 of them and 2 beds. So they shared. What did they share? They didn't just share the camaraderie of friendship. They shared the writing, the hardships they had to endure during the beginning parts of their career. and how to work together and build a lasting legacy. That to this day, most musicians in the industry, if you come up to somebody, whether it's Frank Sinatra, yeah, he's no longer around, but his famous daughter Nancy is. If you come up to someone like that and you say, hey, what band did your dad really love during the era that he was popular? He would say the Beatles was one of his favorites. In fact, Sinatra quotes, one of his famous quotes is that his favorite song written by Lennon and McCartney is Something. Unfortunately, that wasn't a Lennon McCartney tune. It was written by George Harrison. So, although Sinatra's this huge guy, famous for music, which the Beatles grew up listening to, he got it wrong about who wrote his favorite song. But you see, here's the beauty of it. All of the steps it took to get to where they are today, and how much celebration we will do for the 50 years of celebrating the life and times of all four of those iconic heroes in music. It's those steps, those fortunate steps they took that created and paved the way for how it is today. They were the first band to play at a stadium. They played at Shea Stadium. They were the very first to do that. Play a live concert in an outdoor stadium that held about 80,000 fans. No other band had ever done that before in the industry. Another thing, they were the first to have music videos, way before MTV, back in the 1980s. The Beatles did it first. Watch Strawberry Fields. Now that's a short form. If you're talking long form videos, you gotta watch A Hard Day's Night, Help, those movies, Yellow Submarine's another great one. Those types of movies helped pave the way for musical documentaries and the way we watch music videos today. Now, although it's not the same standards. And one final thing, the way they dressed was very classy. And today's standards with the way some musicians dress. Sure, it's not the same as the way they dressed, but like I said, what did we learn from the Beatles? We learned to dress good, to endure the hardships so that you can leave a lasting legacy of leadership that'll last a lifetime. Not just for yourself or your family, but for everyone to enjoy. Mr. Toastmaster.